like to welcome you to the April 20th, 2022 City Council meeting. Roll call. To my left, Dee Cragen, Jason Upchurch. To my right, Heather Newsome, Caleb Stapp, Community Service Director Roger Krieger. To my left, Debbie Craig, City Clerk Treasurer. Tonight's invocation will be by Jeremy Wanch on the Vine Community Church. Please stand and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance.
Father, we commit this meeting to you, knowing that you have placed these men and women in these positions to be good stewards. I pray that you give them wisdom and skill in navigating whatever the challenges and decisions that need to be made. Pray that they work together in unity. That would be a blessing, and just to edify this community. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, moving on to item 4, approval of the agenda. I have an amendment, and let me give my spiel here. The Deer Park Municipal Code Section 2.04.040 was recently approved by the City Council, requires that the council take a procedural vote now in order to add an item to the agenda. If any action is to be taken on that item tonight, in order for the council to approve of such a procedure, to use the selection of a qualified person to fill the council seat vacated by former councilperson Ron Schultz. My suggestion is that the council person make a motion to add the discussion of this process used to fill the open council seat to the agenda with possible action to approve procedure to follow this open council position for the agenda for the meeting tonight. Does anyone care to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that item will be added to agenda under new business 7D. Item 5, approval of March 16th, 2022 regular council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Don't we have to approve number 4 as amended?
Yes, we do. You're right.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, public hearing, 6-year transportation improvement program resolution 2022-006. We'll close the regular council meeting, go to public hearing. Do we have any comment? Roger, you want to speak on that first?
Sure. Just basically, this is an annual thing we do as a part of the comprehensive plan process, and it's basically ratifying the capital improvement plan that we adopted by resolution back in January. But just from a timing standpoint, as part of the planning process within the state, we have to go through this effort and have a public hearing for comment should the priorities change or be modified or whatever. You know, it's something we can do every year. Really, it's the best time to do it at budget time, but this process is typically been used to keep in priority the various projects we've done primarily with federal and state money, because that's where the real big costs are. And so this resolution, in essence, goes into DOT, gets added to the statewide transportation improvement program, and we just have a hearing here. Later in the council meeting, you'll have it for an action item.
Any comments by the audience? Okay, if not, we'll go back to the regular, we'll close the public hearing, go to the council meeting. Item 7 under new business is change order number 5, Northwest Grading, Inc. Roger?
So this is a change order. It's really one that Debbie requires as part of the process to finalize the documentation that has to go to Labor and Industries and to Department of Revenue and all those folks that monitor, make sure the contractor pays his folks the way they're supposed to, no liens against the project. And so this is actually a decreased change order of $70,000. In essence, we didn't use that. We had a contract for more than we used, and mostly it's because of unit prices, whether it's asphalt or number of pipe fittings or length of sewer main or whatever. It's a cumulative thing. And so in the end, $70,000 of the budget that our contract that we had with them weren't using, and so we're just adjusting the contract amount down so that then Debbie can finish the project and finish the paperwork.
I make a motion to approve change order number 5, Northwest Grading Incorporated.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments by the council?
It's nice to see something come in under budget.
We're
bidding
now.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Item B is Deer Park pedestrian ramp replacement, recommendation of award and confirmation of award. Inland Infrastructure of Spokane, Washington, with a total bid price of $174,922.50. Roger would be entertaining us.
So this one you see in front of you has, the notice of award document has already been signed by the mayor, and we had to send it in. And primarily the timing was such that this was going to be at your last council meeting when we didn't have a quorum. And from the time you open the bids, you have 30 days with which to process them and award. And we were up against that window where we couldn't make it to here. So we had to proceed along with this to have Tim sign the document. So we're here to kind of confirm that signature. What it is we receive, because we have a complete streets ordinance, which basically means when we look at street projects, we look at all modes of transportation, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, vehicle lanes, and all those kinds of things. That's why on Cedar Road, for example, the road goes out with sidewalks on both sides, is because we have an ordinance that says we're going to do that to make sure all those folks are taken care of. Well, because of that, we received a grant we actually received a nomination from Spokane Regional Health for a grant to the Transportation Improvement Board about 5 years ago now, 4 years ago, something like that, for $200,000. And so we got a grant from them, no match required, to use we had to come up with a work plan, and basically the work plan was we used $60,000 on the paved pathway from Weber to the high school to redo that. So that was done with the grant when we were doing the pavement preservation along Weber. And then the remaining was intersection improvements, making pedestrian improvements, handicap ramps meet the current standards. That is a little bit of a moving target every year, it seems like, but to meet the current DOT standards. And so we were able to identify, we had a lot more than we identified, but we bid this project last fall. We only had one bid, and they came in really high, so we rebid it this spring. And in essence, the intersections that will get improved is at the grade school, Weber and D, that will have handicap ramps and meet the current standards. At at Reaper and D, and at Evergreen and D. So we'll work our way down there and make those so they meet the handicap standards for pedestrians to access. At budget time, we budgeted some additional funds. We had $140,000 left. The bid last year to do one intersection was $170,000, and that's why we rejected it. But we added money to the budget. This year we got 9 ramps in for $170,000, so it was worth the effort. But anyway, that's why it's before you now to concur with the signature of the grant and to go forth. Again, the state portion is $139,000 roughly. Our portion of it's $30,000 to finish it up. Probably a little bit more by the time we get the engineering and all stuff done. But anyway, that's what's for you.
Give a motion to approve Deer Park pedestrian ramp replacement recommendation of award and confirmation of award. Hey, give me a break. With Inland Infrastructure of Spokane, Washington, with a total bid of $174,922.50. Second.
Can you have a motion and a second? Any questions by the council?
How many more of these did we identify as needing work?
Well, we need all of them to Forest. So we have 2 more intersections in through there that could be done. Someday there may be another grant that comes along, or if we want to try and use some of our funds to try and do them. But as we do pavement preservation, as we do more on Crawford Avenue, for example, all the ones along here, none of those meet the current standards, so they all get to be done whenever we do those kinds of projects.
Okay.
South Main, they comply. Portions of Crawford, they comply up by Weber and so forth, but they've changed their rules, and we have to deal with them every time. If the asphalt touches the curb, we have to fix those. So
My assumption is that those on the list there's not necessarily problems, it's just meeting the
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, the standard is such that the problem is perhaps someone in a wheelchair couldn't approach the ramp pitch that we have in them now. So
Okay.
is there a problem with them? By today's standards, yes. Could a person navigate them? I don't know that.
Okay. Thanks. No other questions?
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item C, Task Order 2022-07, Pedestrian Ramp Replacement Project Rebid and Construction Management Services, JUB Engineering. Roger?
So this is the other side of it is we have to do, because it's federal and state money, we have to follow their rules relative to project management inspection and continued inspection services. So this is our consultant watching the project, managing it, tracking the dollars, all the part that a person with a stamp has to do.
Okay, motion to approve task order 2022-07.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions by the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item D. Okay, now this, I'm gonna stick my nose in this. This is a council decision, but my suggestion is that the council directs staff to advertise in the Deer Park Tribune that the opening exists and that qualified applicants should provide a letter of interest to the city clerk treasurer on or before 5:00 p.m. on May 11th, 2022. The council should plan to either interview the applicants at the May 11th council meeting and determine which applicants to interview and conduct the interviews at the June 1st council meeting. This process will result in a decision by the council to fill the open seat by May 18th or June 1st, depending on whether there are more than 8 applicants. The interviews of the applicants will occur in an open public meeting, and after the interviews, the council is permitted to meet in an executive session to discuss the qualifications of the applicants. However, the council vote on which applicant to select must occur in the open public meetings. Does this process seem reasonable to the council to do, or do you have suggestions or ideas? How would you like to set the process? We'll start with you, Dave.
You're sure taking a long time. A long time. It's far too long. I'd like to see it taken care of by at the next council meeting.
Okay. Hazel?
So I actually agree. I would like to see a process where, so I've had various people tell me they're interested, or they've officially, hey, I want to be considered, or some people say they're, I don't know what that means. It'd be nice to just view this as a simple job interview and
Here's the application.
to see, yeah, maybe something, yeah, just as simple as this. If they want to be officially entered into the running, as it were, for this job, for them to fill this out, and we could have I don't recall quite all the timeline, Tim, that you mentioned, but I would like to be able to see who is in fact officially in, and then be able to compare and then interview them, and then then vote. So I
Because
like
the
that.
requirements are really small. You have to be here a year residency, and you have to be a registered voter.
Yeah,
So,
That's the only requirements for the council position.
right. Yeah, but I'd like to know who those,
what interest they have.
who they are. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Heather?
I think I agree with the shortened timeline. There's no reason to drag it out that far.
What was your? I'm sorry.
Kim?
Could you go over the timeline again? I was writing down some notes, but I'll miss some of the dates.
Have the qualified applicants before 5 p.m. on May 11th, 2022. The council should either plan to interview the applicants at the May 18th meeting. If there are more than 8, the council may review the applications at the May 18th council meeting, and then interviews at the June 1st. If we have 8 or less, we can make it shorter.
Right, and June 1st is our date,
Your
our
goal.
90-day date. We have to make a
Right.
decision.
We have to do that before
Which is
that.
great. Appreciate that. some of my priorities would be, this application is great. I think there's also value in just asking for a candidate to submit a resume as well, because we do need to make sure these questions are answered. I agree with that, but I would like to see written how they communicate and organize their thoughts in a written form, and then I want to see how they respond during interviews. And I think those communication pieces are the two big things that I want to see. I'm happy to. It sounds like the main delay in getting the applications done is to try to leave lots of time for notification and for them to respond. As I was just kind of brainstorming for tonight, I assumed that we would be getting applications in by the first meeting in May, talking to them at the second meeting in May, and then either voting on them at the second meeting in May or at the first meeting in June.
And that's basically what that date does. May 4th is that's, next.
I heard May 11th. I heard May 11th was.
Well, May 11th is just between the May 4th and 18th. It gives them more time to put their stuff in.
Okay.
Because you're not going to look at them anyway until the 18th, the applications.
Okay. Which is fine.
And that's, I think, the date-wise, the 4th and the 18th of that first and third Wednesdays. That's just the way the council meetings. It's short of a special meeting.
No, I don't think we need a special meeting for it. I think that's great.
My problem is, do you think that's fair that we require all of this of an applicant when they can run in the only two requirements is residency and register?
Absolutely. I think it's fair. It's much harder to run for a candidacy than it is to submit a resume and show up for an interview. We're still making it far easier than going through the work of getting elected. So
And expense.
yeah, I mean,
I just.
well, I agree with you. Legally, the bar is very low, but I don't see any reason why the bar. Yes, if we only have one person applying, then as long as they meet the legal requirements, sure. But if we have a choice, then I want to be able to interview them and hear about their background and experience, and do our job as representatives to help choose. And then we'll see if they make it through the next election cycle, which will be an interesting reflection on our ability to choose.
May I?
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, if could we just bump up, because dragging it out to June does seem a little long. Could we maybe say applications need to be in by the 4th, and then we can interview and potentially vote on the 18th?
Whatever process you want. This is your next deal.
I'm asking the council.
Yeah.
I will say, if somebody is not willing to fill out a piece of paper to represent our city, we have to really question whether they should be sitting here.
Not necessarily.
So, yes, necessarily. I mean,
No.
you want to represent the people of your park, you should be able to fill out a form. So, I feel like it's much easier than running for council. What's that?
I said, we filled out a list of forms when we ran.
All kinds of forms.
Yeah, hang on a second,
All the
Chuck.
council members, okay, I want to make sure all the council members have spoken, and then I'll throw a few things in if that's all right.
Okay, go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, sorry about that. I lost a lot of what was said because there's someone on the phone line
Right.
that does not have themselves on mute when they're not talking. So there's a dog in the background and people, so I hope I'm not covering things that have already been covered. The problem with trying to take any action or take activity at the May 4 meeting is that if you want to give yourselves a reasonable opportunity to review the names at a minimum and what the people submit, you probably want the deadline then to be moved up to April 27th, which is only a week from today and doesn't give much time to get the word out. So that was the idea behind the mayor's suggestion that you push this to May 11 as a deadline at 5 p.m., which is a Wednesday, prior to the Wednesday council meeting. And that way, if you have, and then the other issue is, if you have more than 8 people, it's a little bit cumbersome to interview everyone. I mean, maybe if you have 9, you decide to do that. But if you get 15 applicants, you may want to have an executive session to discuss the resumes and the qualifications and then go into open session and talk about and take a vote on who you want to interview to cut down the amount of work. 8 was just a random number. So assuming you get 8 or fewer, you're going to be in a position where you'll have all that information by May 12th because of, Debbie being able to email it to you. You'll have all that information by May 12th, be able to meet on May 18, interview all of them if it's 8 or fewer, and then make a decision that evening. No reason to delay it. The only reason it would be delayed to June 1 is if you have more than 8 interested individuals. Then to be fair, and without a special meeting, you probably should take that extra step of considering who do you want to interview, and then those interviews, because it will chew up a lot of time on May 18 to go through that to decide who you want to interview. Those interviews would then be conducted on June 1 with the idea that the appointment would be made following the interview.
Okay.
Any questions?
Do you want to, I need a motion.
I will make a motion to follow that timeline.
And then if we go
And-
ahead of it, we're okay.
And if we go ahead, but I would also like them to fill out this application, turn it into City Hall to be officially considered for the position.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Just one other question. There's been mention of an application. I think it's really, it's up to the applicant. If they want to just say, this is my name and this is my address, and I've lived there for 10 years, period, I'd like to be considered, that's up to the applicant. I'm not aware of any, none of my clients have a form that people have to fill out, for example. If someone wants to provide a 2-page or 3-page resume about their qualifications, have at it.
Okay.
That's just my only comment. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Moving on, number 8, resolutions. Letter A, Resolution 2022-006, 6-year Transportation Improvement Program. Roger.
So the list of streets, I mean, if you have them all in front of you, but basically Caldwell Avenue is the number 1 list. That's the extension from 3rd to the city limits that we applied for. It was on the contingency list. It never made it to the contingency list over the 3-year period, so that's why it's still there. Fur Avenue, Airport Avenue, Caldwell Avenue, these are all streets that have been on the list for years, and slowly they keep moving up as we pick them off. It'll be harder once we run out of the federal aid routes. Then it's just TIB has dollars, and their dollars are getting harder all the time with gas tax and so forth too. But that's the list we've had for years, working them up. And so if there's any questions, I can try to answer them, or hopefully you're in support, then we'll get this submitted and hope that the Caldwell Avenue application is in. We'll see if it comes out this next cycle.
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-006.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Comments or questions by the council? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item B, Resolution 2022-007, repealing Resolution 2020-006, repealing the city declaration of COVID emergency 19. That is I'm going to relinquish my emergency powers. I think it's time. That's all I got to say.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're done with that.
Thank you.
Is everybody happy now?
Item 9, ordinances, we have none. Item 10, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of voucher claims check numbers 4148 through 4196 in the amount of $336,148.59 for the second half of March 2022. Item B, approval of voucher claim check number 4197 through 4222, including EFT debits in the amount of $261,331.33 for the first half of April 2022. Item C, approval of payroll checks number 14,545 through 14,582, including PFML, 941 taxes and health benefits in the amount of $138,740.26 for the month of March 2022. Item D, outside water service agreement during the May. Item E, notice of acceptance of work, Cedar Road North Extension, Northwest Grading Incorporated. And item F, 4th of July display agreement, Rockman Pyros LLC.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion second. Any comments, questions by the council?
Question. We're spending the same number of dollars each year on fireworks. My
The
assumption
figure is 10,000.
right, which is great. My assumption is that that is buying us fewer and fewer fireworks each year just because of rising prices. I was just curious about it.
Is this the same contractors that we had last year? Get the amount of shells, the same amount of shells, it's not less. Actually, it's the same program as Winterfest.
Sure. Okay.
I was just wondering if the council would maybe consider adding funds to that.
We can do it in our workshop. Our
Next
budget
year?
workshop, yep.
Okay.
Yes, you can't do it now.
Fair.
Okay.
Can't we amend the budget mid-year? I mean, we just saved 70 grand on the streets.
But
Do we want to go up and
That's
lower that?
expensive.
Well, not burn money, but burn it in a pretty way.
You're burning money.
May I ask, could we see what they would provide for us if we did like a $12,000 or a $14,000 show? Could we maybe just get a comparable estimate on that to potentially amend? Did you ask them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has to be paid before May 1st.
Huh.
It's a time.
Jason's
Sorry.
report this year.
What's that? Yeah. What do you think?
So, without having previous year's numbers, I would like to see a little bit larger fireworks show.
It's been.
I would love to see.
I changed it 4 years ago. Went from 5,000 to 10,000.
Can I make a motion to amend to add $2,000 to that fireworks show?
You may.
I make a motion to amend to add $2,000 to the fireworks show.
Okay.
Can we just do, can I make a suggestion instead of doing that?
We need to-
Once we pull that item, can we just pull that item from the consent agenda and have a discussion afterwards?
Not really. This has to be paid before May 1st.
No. But Your Honor, what I'm suggesting is, if the person who made the motion to approve the consent agenda is willing to remove the contract with the fireworks provider from the consent agenda, and the person that made the second is also willing, then I think what the proper procedure would be is to vote on the consent agenda without that item, and then have a discussion about that item.
Okay.
I think you moved.
No, you.
I didn't, you did.
Oh. So what do I need to say, Chuck? What are the magic words?
So someone made, the person made the motion?
Yes.
That's what they're telling me.
Thank you.
Yeah, are you comfortable amending your motion to remove
I didn't make
item
that
F,
motion.
4th of July display agreement?
Are you comfortable removing
No, I'm
that item?
not.
Okay. Okay, actually, Dee made the motion and she is not comfortable removing that.
Okay, then the proper procedure at this point would be to vote on the consent agenda as presented. And if the vote does not pass, then someone would make a motion on the consent agenda without that item, which I suspect, based on the discussion, will pass. And then you have a discussion about the Rocket Man Pyros agreement. Not trying to be difficult, just trying to make procedural sense out of what we're doing, because typically the consent agenda items are really non-discussion items. If you want to discuss them, usually they're pulled from the consent agenda.
I'm waiting. So we have a motion and a second to approve this consent agenda.
Yes.
As
And then within it, you had a motion, but you didn't have a second.
Jason's.
Correct. And so at that point, the motion
Yeah,
failed.
It dies. Yeah,
Someone
the
did make a
amendment.
motion, then I interrupted you for a second. So there was a motion to amend, a motion to approve, which is another way of going about this. The motion to amend was to amend the consent agenda, to amend item 10F to add $2,000 more to make it $12,000, correct?
Yes.
Is there a second to that? Then that's procedurally what we would do. If there isn't, it would die for lack of a second.
We have a second?
It looks like it died.
Okay. Motion. The amendment died.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the original consent agenda? We have a motion, or we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion approved. Item carried. Next year's budget, Jason. Next year's budget.
Start now.
Yes. Sock it away.
Item 11 is the report of departments. Daryl, we'll start with you.
So, I've been talking to you the last few meetings about the on-airport sewer lines. And Penny actually helped me with a EDA grant application to cover some of the sewer mains on the airport. The deadline, or actually they were changing the forms April 1st. We got it in, the application in just before all of the application forms changed, and received a call 2 weeks ago from Laura Ives suggesting that we do an amendment to the Cedar Road grant. And from there, Roger and Debbie have worked with it to get the amendment for the Cedar Road grant. This is really pretty big news because due to census number changes and median income changes, our original grant would only have covered 50%. And because it's an amendment to that grant, it actually covers 80% of the cost. So that was great news for the airport and getting the sewers moving forward.
Thank you. Brad?
Spring cleanup, real busy in the parks. All the bathrooms are up and open and running. My guys went through and did our yearly fix of the skate park, fixed some ramps and holes and things, so it's open and going again for the season. Lots of street sweeping going on, and we started this week with a little water line project that we're cleaning up some of our property that the city owns that have some old water mains on it that we're gonna abandon and put new in, so they're in our right of way off of this piece of property, so.
Thank you.
Just to comment on that. Thanks for letting me know that the bathrooms in the parks were open. That was on my list of things to check on. And how do we decide when to open those? Because I know like in Spokane, the parks they're still closed, and it's really frustrating for people as they try to go.
I just watch the weather is the big thing, because our bathrooms don't have heat in them.
Right.
So because they'll freeze. I mean, we had some pretty good breakage this year just because of the weird weather we had. So we had some extensive repair to do in some of the bathrooms from frozen parts.
Okay.
So I just kind of watch the weather, and when it quits getting, like below freezing at night, then that's when we go fire them back up.
Okay.
And we start with the bathrooms, and then we move on to the sprinkler systems later.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Roger, you're up.
So since Daryl started, let me finalize that a little bit more. It was one of those things where, if maybe all of you don't know, but the reason we got the 80% money on Cedar Road in the first place is because of the we were part of a disaster declaration the county made several years ago when the road softened up and we had mud and rutted and all those kind of things. We got federal help for rock out there, and then lo and behold, when we started down the path of applying for funding, we got this 80% money. That project, we had estimated about $6 million, and it came in round numbers at 4.5 all in, which meant of the EDA grant, we left 1.45 million on the table. We're going to have to give back to them. They're not set up to take that money back or take that allocation back very well. When we had phase 1 project, we gave back $300,000 or $400,000, and they didn't like that either. And so the engineers at the time said, don't do that and all that kind of stuff. And fine, and we got this grant, and really we had really good bids. We had a lot of bidders, a lot of interest, hit at just the right time. Obviously the prices we have now weren't there, but saved us a lot of money. That, if you recall, a couple meetings ago, we did the LID and lowered their amount from 1.25 to 800 and some thousand. So overall we saved a lot of money. Well, Joe and Penny and Daryl put in this grant application, and timing's everything, because I'm pretty sure if we would have asked if we could have transferred some of those funds out to the airport, typically you can't do that because it's not within the scope of it. But the fact that we had this application in, it timed out just right, where they knew we had extra funds left over. And so they came back saying, hey, well, what about doing this? And they contacted Daryl and contacted me, and I mean, it's 80% money, great. What do we have to do? And so this last week I met with them twice and been getting lots of paperwork back and forth. The hardest part is it takes us back to all the same paperwork again for the project. But and we'll have to bid out the construction, we'll have to bid out the engineering. And the only real challenge is we couldn't amend the project completion date, which is September of '24, which somebody else will have to finish. So that's going to be a thing out there that somebody's going to have to deal with the paper trail at the far end of it. But we still should be able to get the work done in 2023. So, timing-wise, it may work out. Again, it's 80% grant funds. Daryl already has that loan set up for the match portion of it. The only thing EDA won't pay for is the pumping out the septic tanks, decommissioning the septic tanks, and making the connection. So that has to be, they look at that as the last mile, so to speak, that's privately held. So that's on the owners to pay for that, or perhaps a loan to pay for it, however that's chosen. But we're still going to end up giving money back, because I don't think the project's going to, what it works out to is we could have a $1.7 million project, and 1.4 of it would be grant, but we're looking at about $1 million. So we're still going to end up giving some money back. But they're way more happy with that and modifying the scope of the grant than they are getting the rest. So good news. Sometimes falls out of the sky, so we're set for that. Spray farm, same as Brad, we've been getting that fired up. We're going to start probably flowing some water tomorrow, the next day, depending upon the temperatures in the uprights, and get ready to have another irrigation season, hopefully starting next week, and getting some water on the ground. We're about the same elevation we were last year, so we're in pretty good shape that way. Project-wise, the North Dalton well the drilling's underway. They should have the first 30 feet or so of the pipe in the ground, 25 feet, something like that. Static water level, 5 feet below the ground, below the surface of the ground. It's amazing out there. Once you relieve that pressure, it just wants to almost come out. So it should perform well. It's going to be well worth it. We're still in the running for the block grant for the construction of the building, stuff around it through the winter. So that looks like it's still promising. And then 6th Street Reservoir, if you've heard the noises going on up there, and look, there's several bags of sand. They're starting the sandblasting this week. Sandblast on the inside. They have to sandblast the outside. They have to sandblast the concrete pedestal. So they'll be there making noise for a while, getting that done. And then the coatings, once the temperatures help us, the coatings on the inside will start, and we'll proceed along and go from there.
Thank you.
Questions? That's all I have.
Jake, are you with us?
I'm here, yes I am.
You're up.
All right, thank you. We've had a big slew with the sun being out and spring approaching. I'm not going to say warm weather, but at least the sun being out. We've had a whole slew of permits come in. Everybody, I'm sure, has noticed that the building is going full stream. So just a lot going on. A lot of permits being applied for, commercial and the residential. So we're doing, I would expect to see a lot of activity this summer. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, item 12, council questions, comments, or reports. We'll start with you, Dee. Jason?
No, nothing.
Heather? Caleb?
An update on the RFP process for evaluating our city hall building. Our task force has sent our document to the city attorney, so he's going to look over that, and then it'll come before the council, and it'll be our job to approve that, to send that out to companies so that they can respond with how they can help us meet our goals for this building and how to evaluate that. So it's a heads up on that coming soon, and then that's it.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's not it. I was curious, oh, maybe you're going to talk about the communication survey? Or was that just information?
That's for you to read.
Okay.
That's for you to read.
Well, I have some comments. That's great. So my initial impression was, I'm glad we sent it out. That's great. I was glad people responded. That was helpful. I did notice that there was quite a few people that never look at our website, which was not surprising. And then it also wasn't surprising that the method we used to send out the survey was also the preferred method to receive news. That shouldn't shock anybody. I mean, if we ask on social media how people want news, they're going to say social media. If we put it on our website, people would have said the website. Nobody goes there, so it's good that we didn't bother with that. I did notice that the email was popular, the paper was popular. Those are good ways as well.
And the surprising one was the water bill paper.
Well, sure. Well, I think people as they're filling it out, they're, well, of course, yes, I saw this. So everybody that saw it was naturally, again, kind of prompted to say that. The smartphone device use wasn't surprising. That's popular. We see that all the time. And I think this just really reinforced the idea that we need multiple channels. And so now that we have an IT person on board, I would like to see, more of that. We need multiple channels of communication. And it's one of those things that takes some time to build out and get used to it. But once you get used to communicating information through multiple channels, it becomes fairly simple to take your information, repackage it across 4 or 5 different channels, and send it out fairly quickly and easily. So that's one that, again, we hear of that need regularly, and it would make things like helping people apply for city council. That would reach more people if we're using more methods of communication. Do you have any plans for us? That's, as the executive, you get to kind of lead the charge on that. What are the plans to help us do that?
Well, we're going to be working with Dean, the IT guy.
Okay.
So we're going to work with him closely.
Okay.
We just got this back, and we've been sitting on this for about a month. So we had a little over 500 replies, which is which is a good return.
Yeah, that's great.
Return, so. Dean is working on some projects right now. They're not out yet,
Okay.
but he is working on it.
That's great. What are your preferences?
Well, the email, one of the things that interrupted me was the age groups. 24% was over the age of 60 to 69. And then
Are you talking about the respondents or the demographics?
age groups. Age groups.
So is that who lives here, or is that who responded?
These are the ones that responded
Okay,
to
thank you.
the survey.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting. One of them that was disappointed in was they don't use our website, the city's website. That should change with the new IT guy. So
Okay.
it's getting updated. It's where Jessica was overloaded before. Now Dean has full control of it.
Well, I think that's one that a website is good for static information, or to have links back to from your outward flowing communication. But a website, as far as a place for people to go and get news on their own without some sort of reason to do that, that generally doesn't happen very much, if ever. So it will be helpful to have that updated if we have other reasons for the people to click on that and go to it. So if we have an email that says, here's the news, or here's what's happening, click here, go to the website for the full, information, that would drive traffic to the website. But otherwise, I don't see the website changing unless we have other means of communication to drive people to that. And really, since the goal of having a website is communication, since we have one, we should be using other things to help drive people to it and make it more useful, because we're paying for it. I mean, that was one of the things we approved tonight, was the Smarsh bill, and we're updating that. That's great. But these other often free services like MailChimp for email, it's free. Take some time. But
We're working on it.
Yeah.
This is a new venture for us.
that's great. Thanks for working on it.
Okay. Okay, item 13, interested citizens, oral communications, requests and comments from the audience on unrelated agenda items. Do we have some questions? Sir, give your name and your address.
Kevin Ellingwood, 214 Meadowmere Road. I don't mean to ambush either Daryl or Roger, but I just had a conversation today with the contractor about the possibility of building a hangar at Deer Park Airport. And one thing that kind of surprised me was, I said, hey, what would it cost to put a bathroom, just a toilet and a sink, in a new construction hangar? And he said in Deer Park that would escalate it to commercial building standards and an entirely different price range and everything on that. So I wonder what the best approach might be to that. Would it be a variance or a change in the code somehow? Or is it too hard to do?
Roger.
Well, a hangar follows the type of construction, and the type of occupancy doesn't change whether it's the vendors that do the big jets out there or the private hangars. Are all built under the same building code and the same classifications and stuff. So I'm not sure where that contractor is saying that. The fact that they want plumbing and so forth up until about,
Okay.
right now it doesn't. I don't think we'd probably approve any building permits that needed plumbing, because the last thing you'd want to do is put a septic system in that's going to be pulled out in a year. So that would have to be a kind of later thing. I'm not sure about the parcel that he's talking about, and if the sewer mains are even going by there. Now that's a whole nother discussion that I'm not sure which parcel, and maybe Daryl knows. Maybe the sewer lines are going by the parcel he's talking about, and water, but that I don't know.
Yeah, this wasn't for any particular parcel. It was just, I just had the opportunity this afternoon to talk with the contractor out there who's putting up a hangar for someone. And thinking back on it, about a year or so ago, I talked with someone else who had put up a hangar, and they also likewise ruled out the idea of doing a bathroom in their hangar on the same thing.
Was that with the septic system or without the septic system?
That I don't know, sir.
That's a question.
But if I am not mistaken, just in conversation with contractors for the construction guys last summer, it sounded like the water line and possibly the sewer line were stubbed in at intervals along the airport fence. I don't know if that's the case.
Do you have any?
And so some parcels will have sewer and some will still be dry. So it's going to depend upon which spaces are chosen and all those kind of things. But there's going to be some hangars that aren't going to have sewer and water capacity to them even when we're done with the sewer project out there, and then some will. So they'll have to pick and choose with what Daryl has on the layout of where that's going to go. The only thing I can think of that the contractor might have been talking about is firewalls are the key as far as where they fit. And then some spaces out there, they have to put firewalls in, and some spaces they don't. It's all about which one they choose. And so there's a lot of variables to whichever parcel is chosen, the size of the building, all those kinds of things. The spaces are set up so they're limited to certain size buildings that'll fit. If they need a bigger building, they got to buy a bigger hangar, or at least a bigger space, and that all drives it. So anyway.
Are you familiar with that?
Well, yes, I am, and he's absolutely correct. One conversation that I did have with Skyline Builders, Rick Henry.
With Rick, yeah.
He was telling me he built a hangar with a bathroom at Phelps last year, and that the new NREC codes just skyrocketed the price because of the way the hangar has to be sealed, the amount of insulation, and evidently, and I don't know if this is a Spokane only thing or if it's, I would imagine it's national building code, the whole hangar had to be insulated. It couldn't be just a bathroom with just a bathroom heater. They assumed that the whole thing had to be insulated and sealed.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I apologize, gentlemen, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that question with no prep time, but I'll try and follow up with you then.
Have you been working with Skyline?
No, I had not. I've been kicking around the idea of leasing a lot and building a hangar for some time, and then today I just happened to talk with the contractor out there who was throwing one up right now, so thank you.
The last thing to add is it really boils down to, in our state, the State Building Code Council has decided that energy conservation is a big deal, and that if you show that you're going to insulate, say you want to put a unit heater in your hangar to go out there when it's cold and work, then in order to do that, not only do you have to deal with the heater, you have to deal with the lights, and you have to deal with the insulation package because of the conservation measures needed for the state energy code, which we don't have the flexibility to modify that through the state. I mean,
That's
so
pretty well dictated to you.
it is, and so hangars, if they're cold, that's where it would boil down to, depending upon what they wanted to do. But if, like the big hangar out there that's fully insulated and all that stuff, and heating the floor and so forth, yeah, they probably have that, and it complies with the energy code when it was built. The tougher ones are the little hangars that someone wants to go out there in the wintertime and it's too darn cold to be in there because they're like ice boxes, but that's what our energy code does to us.
We good?
Yes, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Jim?
I just want to give an update on the humanitarian drive that we had for Ukraine town-wise. We did it for 3 weeks, brought 3 full carloads of goods down to the Slavic church and missionary church in Spokane. As we were unloading the car, they were taking the packages that we delivered, wrapping them up, packaging them, and by the time we left, some of our stuff was going on a truck to be brought to the airport in Seattle to be shipped to Ukraine.
Nice.
It was wonderful to see all these, you had old men, old women, all the way down to little kids working together and just happy that this was all going on. It just gave you a love that Jesus puts in all of our hearts to help one another. And we had donations from as far north as Diamond Lake. We had several from up there. Around town, several people in town. And most of the stuff was brand new things that were being donated. There was food that was donated, the kind that was light that they could ship over there. Somebody donated boxes of hand warmers, which went to the military for Ukraine. And all the stuff that we donated is now in Ukraine in the hands of the people that needed it. So for a 3-week drive, Deer Park was fantastic. We surpassed anything that I was hoping for. So thank you, Tim, for getting it out on the webpage, and Rachel, thank you for putting it on your webpage. And a big shout out to Billy Costello.
Yeah, say you and Billy did a lot.
Because Billy, his office was a dumping place. We went in there one day to pick up goods, and this is kind of comical. Billy was out of town, and his office staff was hoping we would come in because he couldn't get into his office. There was so much that was stacked in his office. So that just made our whole day. But we got it out when Billy returned from his vacation. He was able to get into his office. So thank you, Deer Park, and thank you, Council, for helping get this all done. And Rachel, thank you so much.
And thank you, Jim.
That's it.
And thank you for your hard work.
You guys did the work. The people in Deer Park, people that donated, they're the ones that did the work. And if you want to give praise to anybody, give it to Jesus Christ, because he brought it all together.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Rachel, I'll get you first.
Should I stand up?
Yes.
Like it matters. I want to piggyback on with what Caleb was saying about the website. I know why people don't go there. It's not updated. Winterfest did not make it on there last year, and that there was a huge confusion on where it was happening, and thank goodness it happened. But I think it would draw a lot of people to the website if we had an events calendar, and because I think if people had a reason to go, they would. And adding to the events, the circus is coming June 7th, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, where it always is, put on by the Kiwanis. So that is coming. So I wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Sir?
Yeah, my name is Alex. I live at 404 East Crawford. I had a couple comments on things that maybe we could implement in Deer Park. One is online bill pay for water. I live really close to City Hall, and even then, sometimes it's hard to remember to swing over, pay the bill. It's the only bill most of us have that is not online. So it sometimes just gets tossed in the back of the head. The other thing is, I don't know if many of you are aware, Spokane, they currently have it's a water reimbursement program where if you take your front yard and tear the grass out and put water...
Zero-scaping?
Yeah, zero-scaping your front yard. They give you a reimbursement on your water bill. I was hoping that Deer Park could potentially get something like that set up. I know with last year, with the with the pump going out, you guys asked the city to cut back on water usage. I think that would help out a lot. If you got even a quarter of the people doing that, that would save the water for the people who need it, for the parks. So.
And that's something that the Planning Commission and Building Commission, permits and stuff, will be thinking about that with water conservation. We haven't come up with a plan. We haven't even started yet.
Sure.
But it is a good idea. Last year was the highest gallonage we've ever pumped.
Yeah, and seeing the water usage in this last water bill, I noticed that this last year jumped up compared to previous years, and with the new constructions happening, more people moving in just means more water usage throughout the city. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to answer?
Alex, do you know what the rebate is for Spokane Water?
For Spokane, it is, so you need to do at least 300 square feet of your yard to
Green space?
Yeah. At least 300 square feet, it's 50 cents per square foot, up to a $500 rebate.
Is that on a yearly?
No, that's just the one-time.
It's a one-time.
One-time fee.
Oh.
So if you do up to $500, they just give you a $500 credit onto your water bill.
And then that's it?
Yep, and that's it.
Okay. Okay,
Let's
thank
do
you.
this. Anybody else? Richie?
So just piggybacking on the online payment, I know that people can pay online, but I think what a lot of people are looking for is to be able to look up their bill and see what they currently owe, if there's any late fees and that sort of thing. That's something that can't be done on the city website. The other thing, again, with technology is it's been over 2 years since the pandemic started, and we're still having dogs barking on the phone and kids. If we had Zoom or similar, an IT person, even working remotely, could mute everybody that's making noise on the phone. It wouldn't change how people get on the phone. It doesn't exclude anybody based on their technology, but it does give more control and makes it so people can be heard.
Joe? You got a question?
Not really. It was something I was going to mention to Riser.
Okay.
And I could bring it up now if you want.
You got the floor.
Okay, since you gave it to me. And correct me if I'm wrong, I understand that the new water reservoir, water tower, that there's going to be something, aside from painted, there's going to be something painted on it, some sort of logo or something. I read an article recently about a restoration of it. It was actually a restoration of an old water tower that was a feature in the town, Novi, Michigan. And rather than paint what they wanted on there, they got a vinyl wrap. Gives you a chance to have something that's much more detailed. Now, this is just throwing this out there. What it would cost comparatively, how the life is, are good questions, but it's an alternative.
Well, Roger, doesn't the exterior that has to be epoxy coated? For resistance?
And the biggest fear that the Landmark Structures has is any product that would void the warranty of the coatings, like a wrap, what that would do, and so they would back away from that and not want to warranty it. So that's the challenge of it. And so this painting process is going to be the same paint product throughout, different colors, but that's how we keep it with the warranty.
Okay, I just thought I'd mention that anyhow.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll go to item 14.
Let's go.
We're adjourned. Thank you.